What does it mean to be 100? It's a rare accomplishment for any company to celebrate 100 years in business. For the family-owned and operated Parrish Heimbecker Limited, longevity alone is not reason enough. It has always been more important for them to progress, improve, contribute, and generally make their part of the world a better place.
So what does it mean to reach the century mark? Well, none of the assets we started with are still around. Most of our 75 facilities were purchased or constructed in the last 25 years. Almost everything has changed, except for three very important attributes. These attributes represent the essence of our past success and the guarantee of a bright future. They are the innovation, commitment, and personal involvement of every employee.
For 100 years, the management and staff of Parrish and Heimbecker have been committed to serving the farmers' needs. Over time, as their operations expanded and diversified, that motto changed to a reputation for doing business right. From the beginning, the focus has always been on the customer. Parrish and Heimbecker Limited was formed in 1909 by W.L. Parrish and Norman Heimbecker. Norman was 30 years old, while W.L. was 50. Life expectancy at the time was only 47. But a lot of things were different back then. The average wage was 22 cents an hour. The maximum speed limit in most towns was 10 miles per hour. And the Canadian West was just opening up for business, producing some of the finest grain destined for world markets. The first P&H office was established in Winnipeg, heart of the booming grain trade. A Toronto office followed 6 months later. Grain elevators for many different companies sprang up across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. At the industry's peak in 1935, 5,700 Prairie Sentinels dotted the landscape. Today, because of industry consolidation, rail line abandonment, and efficient high throughputs, only about 350 elevators remain. In contrast, Parrish and Heimbecker started with 4 elevators, added more in the west, bought cooks from the Bronfmans in the east, and rationalized their system to the 4 trading offices and 30 modern elevators they have today. This represents almost 5% of all elevators in Canada. Every year, Parrish and Heimbecker handles the equivalent of 300 football fields filled 26 feet deep with grain. Grain handling progressed naturally to moving grain through the Great Lakes. At the beginning of the Second World War, P&H bought the Hudson and its sister ship, the Superior.
I worked on those ships one summer. They only held about 8,000 tons of grain, about a quarter the size of the smallest laker now. In 1983, we bought 9 lakers from the bankrupt Sioux River Shipping Company. We immediately scrapped 6 and named the remaining 3 the Maple Glen, Oak Glen, and Beach Glen, mostly because Herb Heimbecker liked the Scottish suffix Glen. 10 years later, the Maple Glen snapped in half while loading corn because the first mate didn't fill the holes correctly. We bought another ship from Algoma Steamships and carried on. In 2001, we sold our last 2 ships to Canada Steamship Line, owned by Paul Martin, the former Prime Minister of Canada. There's a possibility we might get back in the shipping business in the future.
Before P&H owned any flour mills, it traded bagged flour, a logical extension of grain trading. Sometimes this meant developing markets in interesting corners of the world during interesting times.
In the 40s and 50s, my father Herb would spend 2 weeks visiting customers in the Caribbean. He'd fly to Miami in a prop plane, probably a McDonnell Douglas, and sail in tramp steamers around the islands. His route was carefully planned. For example, he'd sail to Puerto Rico, arrive late afternoon, and have dinner with a buyer. That night, he'd sleep in a small hotel and then catch another boat to a different island for the next meeting. One of his visits was to Cuba. He traded right through Castro's revolution. P&H continues to trade with Cuba today.
Parrish and Heimbecker's first flour mill was the current Hanover New Life Mill. It was purchased from Nectil Milling in 1964. Originally, it included a sock factory, but P&H decided not to keep the sock business. Ellison Milling, with its own proud history reaching back over a century, was purchased from owner Reed Ellison in 1975. Parheim Foods flour mill was acquired in 1989. It fractionates peas and grains into starch, protein, and fiber. Hayhoe Mills, a longtime customer that specialized in organic flours, was purchased in 2007. Unfortunately, the mill was destroyed by fire a year later, but plans for its reconstruction are underway. Early in 2009, P&H bought Dover Industries, adding more flour mills, a paper cup plant, and an ice cream cone plant to its operations. Now, 7 flour mills produce almost 20% of Canada's flour. That's enough to bake into 1.5 billion loaves of bread, more than enough to reach from here to the moon. The company's 6 feed mills were acquired in the 70s and 80s. Denfield, the flagship, is a standalone facility. Over the past 3 decades, P&H bought and built farms in Ontario. Most are dedicated to turkey production, while some have layer hens and chicken broilers. They enable New Life mills to test innovative feeds and animal husbandry techniques. On-farm testing establishes a high level of credibility with feed customers. In 1982, a cash-strapped Peter Pocklington, then owner of the Edmonton Oilers, needed to sell Swift Canadian poultry and the well-known Butterball brand. P&H Foods was created to take advantage of the opportunity. As it happened, Pocklington later sold another national asset, Wayne Gretzky, to the Los Angeles Kings. The P&H Foods plant in Hanover processes over 3.5 million turkeys a year. About a third of them come from P&H farms. Over half the sales are at Christmas. This creates a logistical challenge, producing, processing, and delivering the right size and type of bird in exactly the right quantities. Fortunately, P&H is the best in the country at doing this. Cooked turkey is processed at the plant in Arthur, Ontario. All major grocery store chains are customers. To help with logistics, P&H recently bought Riverdale Poultry Express. It's a specialized fleet of 50 trucks and live haul trailers. This fleet will ensure the timely, safe, and humane delivery of P&H poultry. It's a rare and significant accomplishment when a company endures long enough to acquire the affections and associations that Parrish and Heimbecker enjoys today. While longevity alone is not enough to gauge success, it can be an accurate measure of the vision and ethics of its owners and employees.
I doubt W.L. Parrish and Norman Heimbecker ever conceived that their company would celebrate 100 years in business. In the beginning, P&H was a vehicle to extract the opportunities created by the expanding grain trade. From that single opportunity, we've grown into a diversified transnational agribusiness that is taking advantage of a whole range of opportunities.
Looking forward to the next 100 years, Parrish and Heimbecker Limited will continue to evolve and adjust to its environment. Next 100 years, Parrish and Heimbecker Limited will continue to evolve and adjust to its environment. But one key focus